All right. Hello, hello. I'm just making sure all the tech is working. I did hop on earlier to make sure that I was going to do this right, but let me make sure that I can see and hear myself. And if you, oh, perfect, cool. I just turned on my volume on my phone and I could see and hear myself. And let me turn the volume off now so that, perfect. Okay, so I have everything on my phone so I can watch if there's comments because it's hard. Well, I probably won't be watching as I'm presenting. The reason why I need to do a little bit fancier tech today is because I want to be able to show you guys some slides that I've prepared for today's event. So let me first introduce myself. If you don't know me, my name is Allison. I am the founder of She Dreams Alpine, which is an outdoor adventure blog, and the creator of the Become an Outdoor Backpacking Badass program, where we teach you how to become safe, confident, and self-sufficient in the outdoors. So that's what I do on a normal day-to-day basis. And over the next, I think we have 4 or 5 more weeks left planned of free workshops. We wanted to do like a summer series of workshops leading you into like having a really awesome backpacking adventure filled summer. So today I'm going to be talking to you about how to turn your fear into your superpower. Now, this is a workshop that I've actually done one other time. I did it last year, around this time of the year, I think maybe a little bit later in the year, but it got such a big response and it's one of the topics I love to talk about the most. And so I wanted to share it with you all and hopefully that you gain something from it, because I know like having that fear inside of you and like it's preventing you from getting outdoors is like a big one for a lot of people. So let me share my screen. And at any time, I think I'm able to see comments in the live chat. If you want to say hello, tell us where you're chiming in from, that would be great. So let me just turn this workshop slides on. Alrighty, cool. And I'm just going to confirm here in a second that that's showing up for you. Great. Awesome. Okay. So as I mentioned before, this is how to turn your fear into your superpower. That's what we're discussing today. And welcome. I'm so glad you guys could be here with me live. So what are we covering today? In this workshop, I'm going to cover why fear is normal so that you can stop feeling bad about it. And I'm also going to teach you a new tool that can help you shift any of your fears, big or small, on the trail and off the trail, into momentum creating confidence and outdoor adventure awesomeness. This tool, we call it the backpacking badass decision framework. So that's like a term that me and my team came up with. And we use, because my program's called, my coaching program is called Become an Outdoor Backpacking Badass. So we're playing with that. And then we use the acronym BADASS to help you remember this framework so that you can hopefully easier remember it on the trail. More easily remember it on the trail is what I meant to say. Okay, so as a backpacking badass, we are working to improve our courage, our resilience, our confidence, our strength, both mental and physical, our self-sufficiency, and our leadership skills when we hit the trail. And learning how to shift out of fear into empowered decision-making is one of the most important skill sets you'll learn how to utilize in the outdoors. Also, so I have a free workbook that goes along with this exact Facebook Live this workshop that I'm presenting today. So this is special. I don't usually create workbooks for every workshop that I do, but this one, I wanted you to be able to print out this framework and have it to reference. And then also I'm going to go through a really like detailed example of using this framework in this workshop, but there are more examples in this workbook because I wanted to show you like different scenarios of how you can use this tool to shift from fear into like empowered decision-making and empowered action. So you can download that at shedreamsofalpine.com/superpower. And it'll take you to a page, you put in your name and your email, and then it emails you the workbook. So definitely grab that. That's at shedreamsofalpine.com/superpower. And okay, so problem number one, we are constantly, I think a lot of us who experience a lot of fear, we constantly imagine the worst case scenario, which definitely feels paralyzing. And it thus ultimately doesn't allow, it allows our fears to hold us back from achieving our dreams. So that's like a big problem number one. Problem number two is we can make our fear and our self-doubt mean that we aren't ready to do something or we aren't capable of doing something, which isn't true. But the same thing that is causing our fears is the same tool that we're going to use to overcome our fears, and that is our mind and our thoughts. So just stick with me. I know that might sound a little bit like, oh, mindset, no, but I'm going to teach you how to like actually practically use this to shift out of fear. So this is just like a lot of people resonate with this message because it doesn't dawn on them, but I want you all to know, no matter what level you're at, no matter what level experience you have, you will always experience some level of fear. And there's this term that I like to use. It's called new level, new devil. So as I've progressed in my outdoor adventure, like competency and confidence, I still experience like plenty of fear along the way. It's just for a different level of fear than I used to experience it at. Fear is natural. So you feeling fear is supernatural because you're a human being. The brain, it dislikes uncertainty and is always looking for danger, which is what is creating a lot of our fear. So because our brain is like always trying to keep us safe, it's always like, I don't know, we should stick with what we know. That seems uncertain. That seems dangerous. It's like always coming up with the mind drama. So we need to use our fears not as evidence why we can't do something, but to shine a light on the things that we can improve and that we can work on, because sometimes this is simply like our thoughts and not our skill sets. So instead of letting our fears hold us back, this is the time to start embracing them so that you can grow. So a badass reframe is really looking at your fear as your superpower, because it's giving you insight into what you can work on and what you can grow from. So think of it as a tool that you can really harness and utilize and make your superpower. Okay, so this is the part where I'm like, okay, great. That's great, Allison. But how do we do this practically and how do we do it tangibly? Because it's really like fine and dandy to say, just use your mind, change your thoughts. But like, I want to show you how you can have a tool and use what you have with you to change your fears into something that's going to create positive momentum in your outdoor adventures and in your life. So this is the Backpacking Badass Decision Framework. Again, you can download this workbook at shedreamsofalpine.com/superpowers. I think it's with an S, superpowers or superpower. I forget now. But anyways, the Backpacking Badass Decision Framework is a tool that you can use to help you shift any of your fears, big or small, on trail or off trail, into energy needed to help you make more empowered decisions instead of ones that are based on feeling scared or anxious. And mastering this simple process will serve you both in the backcountry and in your day-to-day life. Okay, so what is the difference between decisions? So like a backpacking badass decision and a fear-based decision. Let's clarify that first before we go into an example. So I consider like a backpacking badass decision, another way you could say that is like an empowered decision making, is that kind of decision gives you forward momentum and energy. It's in alignment with your biggest goals and your dreams. Decisions like that allow you to feel strong and empowered and confident. It expands your options and possibilities. And that kind of decision puts you back in the driver's seat instead of feeling like you're at the mercy of your fear. So, an example, off trail, this could look like any decision that you make that feels like you're truly living your life in alignment with how you really want to. And it empowers you to take action from that place. An on trail example would be like, this looks like you turning your panic, like maybe you're on the trail and you feel fear and you feel panic. And you feel that like fear-based energy, and it helps you turn that into self-confidence and calm decision-making, which is essential to your safety in the backcountry. So that's why it's such an important tool to kind of learn and utilize in your life. So a fear-based decision is ultimately paralyzing. It's something that keeps you stuck, scared, maybe panicked. A fear-based decision could keep you further from achieving your goals and dreams. A fear-based decision can make you feel weak or insecure or disempowered. It limits your options and possibilities, and it can make you feel like you're really at the mercy of your fear, like you're not in control, which you are. So the road to becoming a backpacking badass is paved with opportunities for you to face your fears and hone your mental grit and resilience. And that's what's beautiful about this process. So let's walk through what the backpacking badass decision framework is. And with each step, I'm also going to show you an example of the step. So as I mentioned, we're going to use the acronym BADASS to kind of walk through this framework. So the first letter is B. Breathe it in and be present with your fear. So what does that mean? So breathe it in and be present with your fear. So instead of jumping straight into action, example, like resisting that feeling of fear that you have, take time to like breathe and just let fear exist in your body. I think this process of like not trying to rush or push the fear, it just helps us slow down and get calm and get grounded. And breathing is like such a good way to help us get to that place of calm and grounded. So just be present and be with your fear. In most cases, just because you feel in that instant like an intense amount of fear, in most cases, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are actually experiencing an intense amount of danger in the present moment. So, like I said, I'm going to walk you through an example. This is a picture of me in 2015 on the summit of Mount Rainier. At this point, this was the hardest mountaineering route, technically, that I had ever done. We did a route called the Couts Ice Falls. It involved like lots of glacier travel and 3 pitches of ice climbing and really steep terrain. It was like more intense than I had ever done. I remember I reached the summit, and this photo is deceiving because I look happy, I'm on the summit, but I, in this moment, was just trying to like disguise this intense amount of crippling fear and anxiety that I was feeling in that moment. So the reason why I was feeling that fear is because it was the hardest thing I had ever done, and I was freaking out about going down the thing I had just come up. And I felt like in this panicked moment, like on the summit, like I was freaking out, and I had to just like breathe it in and be present with that fear for a minute. So what I did is I allowed that fear to rush through me. I was actually technically very safe in that moment. I was just on the summit. Things were fine. There wasn't actually immediate danger where I was. And so my intense fear didn't match intense danger, like I was mentioning earlier. And so I was just present with it, and I definitely cried by myself under layers and layers of all my clothing. I don't think anyone else that I was with knew that I was crying in this moment, but like I had a moment on the top of the mountain. I've cried on many, many a summits. So breathe it in and be present with your fear. That's what this step is. So just remember that like fear is a very normal, very human experience and emotion. And just because you're experiencing it doesn't mean anything has gone horribly wrong. So that's step one. Our mind is ultimately what creates our fear. And that's why multiple people can have totally different thoughts in the same situation. I feel like this is important to notice because you can take two different people, put them in the same scenario, and they don't have the same experience of fear. So example, like Angel's Landing in Zion National Park. It's this really like narrow hike, and some people that really scares them, but then some people are like, they're like, sweet. And that's kind of how I feel on this hike. I love doing it. I think it's super fun. It doesn't freak me out. But then some people get on the same hike and they have this intense experience of fear. So you can just see how like we all vary in our emotions in the same situation. Okay. The second step of the badass framework, the decision framework, is after you breathe it in and be present, the next step you're going to want to do is assess the fear. What do I mean by that? So when I talk about assessing the fear, it's identifying 2 to 3 primary thoughts that are coming up for you in relation to the fear that you're feeling. So what is it that you are afraid of here? In my example, I'm going to carry the Mount Rainier example, like, and show you how I use this tool to kind of move through my own fear on this mountain. So my thoughts that I was identifying, like I had that moment, I breathed it in, I had a cry, and then I was like, okay, let's think through this. Like, what is the fear? What's really causing my fearful emotions? And it was these thoughts. This route is hard. There are a lot of crevasses and I'm scared to go down. Going down is harder than coming up. That's something that you just kind of learn when you're in mountaineering and peak bagging. And more people statistically get in trouble going down than coming up a route because they're tired, which means that I'll get hurt. That's what I was making it mean. And number 3, I also had the thought that I'm the weakest, slowest person in my group, and I suck at this and I shouldn't be here. These were like what my brain was trying to tell me. And you can see how these thoughts cause fear and anxiety. They're like obviously going to cause that kind of emotion. So I can come up with a million examples from my own personal experience. And basically all of my fears, whether they're big or small or legitimate or not, all have some form of like, I'm gonna die, like freaking out in my brain, worry attached to them. And that is super normal. The brain, for some reason, the brain loves to go there. It just always loves to go there. It's like, oh, you want to do this? Well, you're probably going to die and you shouldn't do it. We should just stay home. We should just hang out on the couch. Don't leave the cave. It's much safer and cozier here. Like, I think it's just a survival mechanism that we have, and our brain just jumps to conclusions. It's like danger instantly. And that's why we have such like intense responses sometimes. So I wanted to show you examples of my students who have told me about this similar experience. So this is one of our backpacking badass students. Her name is Bonnie. And she posted this in the group and I thought it was really funny. She said, I finally redid my Nemesis hike from October when I bailed because I thought it was too scary, too long, too much further. All Trail says it's hard, so I can't do it. And I'm gonna fall off this cliff and die. She said, I even dreamt about it last night, that it was pouring and covered in slushy mud and we had to reschedule. And then she wrote, so non-dramatic on the repeat. Krista, which is another student, lovely badass beastess, joined me and kept me from randomly flying off cliffs. And I kept her from getting murdered. It's funny where our brains go. She has no fear of cliffs and I have no fear of murderers. We even passed the previous terrifying spot and I barely noticed it. So even Bonnie, like she's recognizing how her fears can evolve, one, but like how our brains go there. Here is another example. This is another backpacking badass student. Her name's Lauren. I just thought it was funny. She was posting her trip report in the Facebook community that we have. And she wrote as one of her highlights, I did not die, I did not get lost, or I did not get mauled by a bear. So she was just like acknowledging like all these things I was super scared of, they did not happen. And just more examples from another one of our students. Let's see, I'm trying to find maybe where the meat of this is. When I started this whole backpacking thing, my main fear was getting lost. And it turns out that fear did not come out at all. I had total confidence in my navigation. The trails were hard to find at times, but I was able to quickly get back on track. That was a huge moment. But my mind was totally running away with so many thoughts and scenarios that I had to actively choose to take control of my mind, or I would have turned around. So took a few breaths and started to really take in the scenery. And that's when things shifted for me and I settled in and enjoyed the moment, a moment I had all to myself. So I just thought that was another beautiful example of this. So it's not to say like going outdoors doesn't have its dangers and risks, but I want to show you these examples because it just goes to show you how much we dramatize these dangers in our brains. When in reality, we experience, like us as humans, we experience danger all the time. But we don't have the same thoughts about it because we've normalized it. We've normalized that type of experience for ourselves. Like, for example, driving a car. Like many people would argue driving a car is more dangerous than going on a hike, but it's so familiar to us. And we literally wouldn't leave the house if we didn't de-dramatize that fear. And so we do it in order to like push forward. And it's kind of the same process with hiking and backpacking. You're going to learn to like feel better on these events and understand that it's your brain that's causing these fears most of the time and those emotions. So our brains fear the unknown. You're going to hear me repeating a lot of things, but these are messages that took me a while to learn. And so I like to repeat some of them. Our brains fear the unknown and they hype it up. Your brain wants you to stay in the known, in the comfort zone, and stay in the cave. And don't be mad at your brain. Your brain is just evolved to do that, you know? We literally, that's how we survived back in the days. So this is very normal, is basically what I'm trying to say. Okay, the D part of the backpacking badass decision framework. So you breathe it in and be present with your fear. You assess the fear, like what thoughts are coming up for you? Why are you experiencing fear? And then D, determine the facts from the mind drama. Okay, so what does this step look like? So we've picked out a few thoughts that are really causing us to feel that emotion of fear. And then now we want to like separate facts from like our mind blowing it up. So a lot of our fears are just protecting or projecting a scenario out into the future. So when you have a fear, like a lot of those fears, it's just like imagining something that could maybe someday in some world happen. And like we just use our imaginations to basically scare ourselves. And notice how active your imagination becomes when you experience fear. Just next time you have the experience of fear, like get curious with it and think about like, wow, my brain went there. Wow, that's fascinating. So it's not that in this step, we're not trying to not be afraid. We're simply trying to bring awareness to everything. Like awareness is a key in a lot of like overcoming emotions that we don't want to have in life. So in this step, we're separating out facts from our imagination. So in my example, the facts from the mind drama. So for me, these were the facts. So I like had a conversation with myself. I'm like sitting there with my fear and I had to like have this chat with myself. I'm like, okay, this is the most technical route I've done, but so far I've done the whole thing very smoothly and successfully already. That's true. Can't argue with that. I was there at the top of the peak. Things had gone great. Another fact, the statement that going down is more dangerous than going up may be statistically true, but it doesn't mean that anything bad will happen to me. And in fact, having that awareness that it can be more dangerous to go down is going to help me focus more on that downward journey instead of just like not having that awareness of that statistic. And the third thing I pointed out to myself here is like, no, I was invited because I'm capable and strong enough to do this. And I do belong here and I am here. So I was just like, hello, brain, like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm here, I'm doing this, and everything is fine. So I had to separate facts from the mind drama. So I think one beautiful superpower we have, like especially us women, is leaning into our feminine energy and allowing time to process fear and not being so resistant to it. Like we don't have to push against our fear. We can allow ourselves to like be curious about it, think about it, like just allow that time that we need. We're taking the time to be compassionate with ourselves, feel our fear, process our fear, and become aware of the thoughts that are possibly creating our fear and creating, and fear could be a dangerous situation if you're not able to shift that energy, you know? And I think this is a really beautiful thing and a beautiful superpower to have. Okay, the next part in the badass decision framework is accessing the present moment. So we were present with our fear. We assessed the fear in the mind drama. We separated facts from mind drama. And now we're going to come back to the present, like just access the present and where we are now. So this is the time where you access the present moment right alongside your fear. And realizing that we can be afraid and we can be okay at the same time. So I love and statements. This is something I talk about a lot. If you've been on my newsletter or following me on social media, I talk about how we can be fearful and have like amazing experience. We can have anxiety and like go backpacking. Like these things you don't have to have no fear when you're going out to do something that's new and out of your comfort zone. We can have both at the same moment. And that's what this step is about. Try saying to yourself, like in accessing the present moment, like trying to like say things to yourself that are really true in that moment. Like, I'm okay. I am here. I'm handling this moment. I'm strong. I am capable. I feel fear right now and I will be okay. Those are just some examples. So for me in this step, separating out the facts from my imagination, that's what really helped me step into the present moment. And I was like, okay, you know what? I am okay. I am doing great. I am capable and strong and doing a great job on this mountain. I can do this. I am safe right now. And I also took this moment to let my crew, like the people I was doing this peak with, I let them know that this was the experience that I was having, and talking about it with the people that I was with also really helped me to feel grounded and like not alone, and just giving voice to it was helpful and gave me like access to the present moment. Okay, so the next step is we've done this like being with the fear, right? The next step, and this is a super important step, is stepping into the possibility. So now it's time to put your imagination to work on the possibilities and the options that you have. So we've given plenty of time and airtime to our fear and the worst case scenario. So now it's time to give airtime to what could be the best case scenario. It's like this concept of giving equal airtime to the good and the bad. So we don't want to just like, our brains are really good at only imagining the bad. And we have to remind them like, hey, like, let's also think about the possibility and the good things that could happen. So giving equal airtime is a super valuable skill that you can use like on and off the trail for lots of things. in your life. And I've had to do that many, many times. So if we're going to use our imagination to look at the future, we might as well use it to imagine the good, the options, and all of the possibilities that we have. So for me, stepping into the possibility meant that I was tapping into the present, which allowed me to start imagining how focused and determined I wanted and would be on the way down. I was like, I'm getting off this mountain and I am determined and I am focused and I'm going to use all the skills and strength and focus that I have to make it down safely. So that was like me stepping into the possibility. I remember this moment because, and this all like walking you through this process, it may feel like a really long process, but when you start kind of getting used to this and practicing it more, it actually happens pretty fast, right? So I had my moment of freak out on the mountain, I'm crying. And then I had like, okay, let's talk about it in my brain. And then I talked to my crew. I was like, okay, I'm grounded. And then I'm like, all right, how do I want this to be? Like, what do I want my downward journey to be like? And that allowed me to step into the possibility and all the ways it was going to go right. And that gave me like a lot of good energy, which leads us to our last step, which is shifting your energy and momentum. So in this step, this is the last step of our process. And this is your action step, like your true action step. So at this moment of the badass decision framework, you might be feeling a lot of extra energy and adrenaline from your fear. And this is a good moment to start channeling that energy to create momentum towards taking empowered action and creating confidence for whatever you need in that moment. So like I mentioned in the last couple slides, like I was feeling some major adrenaline from this experience of fear because like crying is like a major adrenaline response to fear for me. That means like I've really gone there in my brain, like I've really channeled it. I'm feeling it in my body. But as I went through that process and allowed myself to imagine the possibility of conquering that last part of the mountain, it allowed me to channel that like pent up energy into determination and confidence and momentum. And ultimately, my entire crew, we all made it safely back to camp. And everything was fine. But I used that fear energy into, like I mentioned, focus and determination, and really just giving it my all. If I had remained in my fear-based state and like hadn't processed it in the way that I was explaining to you, I certainly probably would have approached that technical terrain that laid ahead of me with an energy that could have been potentially unsafe. Like, I don't know if you've ever been in a place where you just let the fear just take control and you don't channel it into a new energy, how crippling that can feel. Like I have definitely experienced that. Some of my biggest examples have been in like rock climbing, where I've been totally safe, but I was like leading a climb and I just made up a huge story in my head and I never allowed myself to come out of it. And I panicked. And that panic like caused me to, take a big fall, which is normally fine, like if you're doing the climbing properly, but it's not where I want to be. Like I want to be more in control of the situation. And it really all starts with your thoughts. And this process is like a super useful way to kind of like go through it without letting your brain get to that panic point. So when we focus on what we do want, like in that possibility step, which is the opposite of what we don't want to happen, we're able to create motivation, contribution, positive energy, momentum, and focus. So I know that this example that I gave you guys with this Mount Rainier example is a more extreme example of turning your fear into your superpower. But I think it really displays this process really beautifully and concretely and shows you how you can really use this process in the outdoors to contribute to making safe on the fly decisions in the backcountry when you have moments of fear. And I think I talk about, yeah, the next slide. In this workbook, like I mentioned earlier, I have given you more examples that are even like simpler versions of that experience, because I know that like one thing I've taught before is pre-trip resistance, and that fear you experience before you even get to the trailhead, and like the way your brain tries to talk you out of going on a trip. I have a whole Facebook Live. You can dig it up in the replays if you want to watch it, talking about that. I think I talk about an example here in the workbook as well, like that. And then just other things that might come up for you, especially as you start backpacking or start hiking, or if you go solo backpacking or hiking. I put like several examples in there that walk you through step by step of this process and give you examples. Because I'm like I really learn well with examples. Like, okay, you show me your process, now show me an example of you applying that process. So that's why I wanted to share this with you. And yeah, definitely go through it, read the examples, print it off, have it, and practice it when you guys are out on the trail. You could even like screenshot it on your phone so you have it with you when you're out on the trail, so you don't have to create a or bring a whole like packet with you. You can download that again at shedreamsofalpine.com/superpower. And yeah, I mean, if any of you have been like really enjoying this, I would love to hear what your biggest like aha moment or takeaway from today's training on turning your fear into your superpower is. You can type that into the chat if you'd like. I'm gonna open this up in my thing. See if you, Kimberly said hi from Colorado Springs. Hello, Kimberly, that's where I am. Gilly said hi. Hi, Gilly. See some students on here. I hope that this tool was helpful to you guys. And that you guys are able to, I don't know, find as much use in it as I do. And also just know that like practicing this, it'll just become more intuitive when you go forward and use it. But I'm not seeing any comments, but that's okay. I know a lot of people are probably like at work and stuff right now. But if you do have something to share with me later, I'll hop back in and talk to you guys in the comments after this training. So, as always, if you want to take these concepts I introduced you to today a step further, then make sure that you've grabbed my outdoor backpacker starter kit. You can grab that at shedreamsofalpine.com/adventure. It just like builds on everything that I teach. And yeah, as I mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, I'll be doing several live videos over the next month or so as we gear up for our open enrollment of our Backpacking Badass program, which we're opening the doors on June 7th. So we wanted to open it early June so that we can spend 30 days with you guys really digging into the nitty gritty of the content and get you guys onto the trail so you can have like a fabulous, amazing, confident summer. So Sandra said, this was great. Thank you for the workbook too, so helpful. Danielle said, so helpful to reframe being afraid and anxious and being excited, safe, and present. Yes, I'm so glad you guys took that away. I think that's my last slide. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, thank you all for being here. I'm so glad that so many of you could join me live. I know that this is the work day for many of you, and so I know that some people will be watching the replay. But definitely engage in the chat. I'll be checking in later. And if you have any questions, let us know. But otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful Wednesday, and I'll see you next week. And I think next week's Facebook Live, we're going to be talking about, is it safe for women to go solo backpacking? And it's a topic that we're really excited to talk about. So I'll see you next week. Bye, you guys.